Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. It is Tuesday, April 5th, 2 p.m. in conference room 325. We're going to be hearing a number of resolutions today and one bill at the end of the agenda. First up, we've got HCR 7, HR 3, urging the Hilo High School, I don't know why school's here twice, School Community Council to, urging the Hilo High School Community Council to recommend that Hilo High School gym be named after Albert and Lawrence Malingus. We have one testifier in support, written testifier in support, who listed a number of other people that this testimony was representing as well, but they are not here to testify today. So we will move on to HCR 50, HD1, HR 45, HD1, urging the Department of Education to convene a working group to remedy statewide school bus transportation inequities for school children from low to moderate income families. First up, for HCR 50, HD1, we have the DOT Student Transportation Services Branch in support.
Aloha, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and members of the committee. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Emily Evans, Administrator for Student Transportation Services, testifying on the behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. And that's all the testifiers we have for this measure. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions?
This is Dennis Agee. I submitted testimony. I would like to stand in total support of my testimony, but I think I'm on the wrong HCR. My testimony was related to HCR 8.
Oh, yep, we're not there yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here to testify on HCR 50 or HR 45 for school buses? All right, hearing none. Members, any questions? Okay, let's move on to HCR. And just for the people on Zoom and in the audience, we are not going in numerical order. So we're going to skip around a little bit based on subject matter. So if we went from 7 past 8 to this one, but we will be going back and forth. Okay, let's go on to HCR 56 HD1, HR 50 HD1, requesting the Department of Education to implement a Filipino history, culture, and identity social studies course for high school students. First up, we have the Department of Education with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and committee members. I'm Garrett Yoshimura, Standard Support Team Administrator with the Department of Education, testifying for Interim Superintendent Kitayashi. The department stands on its written testimony, offering comments on HR 56. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and we are available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair Matayoshi. My name's Amy Agbayani. Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights stands on its written testimony in strong support of this resolution. Thank you, and I'm available if needed.
Okay, thank you. Next is Kasamahan Ko in support. Okay, not present. Next up to testify on both of these, the HCR and the HR, is the Tinalak Filipino Education Council in support. Okay, not present. Next up, the Filipino Curriculum Project in support.
Hi everyone, my name is Marissa Halagao and I'm a member of the Filipino Curriculum Project. And our project is a student-driven public-private school collaboration of Filipino students. And we're creating a curriculum about Filipino history, culture, and identity. And we're submitting a course proposal to the DOE. We're made up of 11 student collaborators from Waipahu, Kapolei, Farrington, Roosevelt, Punahou, Kamehameha schools. And we are joining together to really combat the underrepresentation that we've seen as Filipino high school students. And we all submitted written testimony of why having more Filipino representation in school is important to us. And we are aware that there are some opportunities to learn about Filipino history in school, but we feel like that is not enough. And we really want a focus course, one that can go in depth and further empower Filipino students. And our curriculum is made up of 3 units: historical context, culture and connections, and Filipinos in Hawaii, with an overarching theme of identity. And the curriculum is geared towards Filipinos and non-Filipinos that hopefully inspires others to embrace their ethnic identities. And we've already received a lot of support from various leaders and the community, and we hope to gain support from you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry, I forgot to mention testifiers. There's a 2-minute limit on testimony. You were just fine. But out of respect for the other testifiers coming after you. Next up, we have the Saralingawa Youth Council, Leon Florendo, who would be testifying on behalf of himself and as an individual as well.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Mahalo for this opportunity. As an individual and as the president of Saralingawa Youth Council, we stand on our proposal submitted. However, I just want to go on record and kind of share a little bit about what we talked about or what was shared by Marissa was, I didn't get to learn about my Filipino heritage and culture and history until I took an ethnic studies course in college. And as a parent of 3 young public school students who are in elementary and middle school, I too don't want them to wait till they're in college to be able to learn about their Filipino history. I teach them about Filipino history, what I've learned, and I try to instill pride in them, in their Filipino culture and other ethnic their other ethnic makeup. However, unless it's portrayed in the DOE, unless it's validated, they're really marginalized. And I feel like, I'm very proud of our young people who really took on this initiative. Marissa Haligao, she's being very humble. She reached out to me about a year and a half ago, asking that she was going to do this project and needed some support. I hooked her up with some high school leaders that we work with through Saralingawa. And today we're hearing a resolution to make some impactful change in the DOE. So again, mahalo to all that's involved, and thank you for this opportunity for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Next up, we have Rory Marbleta in support.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rory Marbleta. I am a graduate from Waipao High School. I am also a first-generation immigrant from the Philippines, and I support this resolution because whenever I ask my Filipino friends who were born here if they can speak in Tagalog or Ilocano, their responses are always like, I can only understand. It turns out that a lot of them were encouraged not to speak any Filipino languages and not learning anything about their Filipino heritage. And despite most of them growing up in a Filipino household, they are still unaware of what it means to be a Filipino. And as a result, most of them kept their Filipino identity under the table. And I support this resolution because first, not only Filipinos who lack knowledge of their ethnic background, but also non-Filipinos will have the opportunity to learn more about our rich history and culture and what it really means to be a Filipino. Not to mention, I don't want my younger sister to grow up not knowing anything about being Filipino. She was born a year ago. She's almost turning 2, and I'm afraid that she's gonna grow up just like many of my friends who were born here that are really not knowing anything about our culture and history, and they are experiencing identity losses, crisis. And yeah, this is the first step to solving that issue. And this is why I strongly believe that this resolution is very important to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Caitlin Jane Agnes in support.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Jane Agnes. I'm a recent graduate from Kapolei High School and one of the members of the Filipino Curriculum Project that I'm here to present. So I'm a 2nd-generation immigrant from the Philippines, and I grew up feeling a disconnection between my family because I couldn't speak Ilocano, their language, or I didn't know much about the Filipino history. And for these reasons, I felt lost saying that I'm Filipino American. And I don't want future generations of Filipinos to feel the same way as I do. Supporting this bill will also benefit those who aren't Filipino because the Philippines culture includes vast similarities with other ethnicities, like those from the Polynesian Islands, for example. This curriculum will also allow every student who chooses to take this class to embrace their culture and self-identity. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Brianna Agus in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and members of the committee. My name is Brianna Kumatagas, and I'm a graduate student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I strongly support this resolution as a second-generation Ilocano and Yonsei Gosei Japanese scholar because students want to learn their histories and see their heritage reflected in their curriculum. Growing up in Hawaii, I had little to no opportunity to learn about what it means to be Filipino, and as a result, students such as myself grew up desiring to reconnect with their ancestry. And students such as those in the Filipino curriculum project that we just heard from have demonstrated this desire as well. They're not only being vocal about what matters to them, but actualizing their ambitions and taking charge of their learning and through submitting testimonies and designing curriculum that speaks to their heritage. I find that it's imperative to listen to our youth and to enact the change that they're asking for. And I believe that in order for Filipinx to know where they can go and what they can achieve, they must first learn about the lands and people that they come from. Similar to other testifiers, I too only learned about my Filipino heritage and ancestry in college, and that changed everything for me because it enabled me to see what I could do and feel that I am empowered just as myself and through my ethnic identity as well. This resolution serves as the first step towards creating curriculum and courses that are not only reflective of our diverse society, but inclusive as well. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next up, we have Raven Julia Sevileja in support.
Aloha Chair, aloha Vice Chair, House members of the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee. I'll talk as quickly as I can. My name is Raven Sevileja. I'm currently a Deputy Prosecuting Attorney with the City and County of Honolulu in the Criminal Unit and Special Prosecutions Division. I have a JD from William S. Richardson School of Law and a bachelor's from the UH at Manoa. I'm the second in my family to have achieved a degree past high school. I'm the EVP of the Filipino JCs of Honolulu and a member of the Hawaii Filipino Lawyers Association, as well as the Honolulu County Committee on the Status of Women. Today, I'm testifying before you as an individual, although drawing from these experiences. I can trace all of my roots back to a small barangay or village in Bangi in the province of Ilocos Norte of the Philippines. I'm the first and only attorney that has come from this barangay. Both my grandparents and parents on both sides of my family immigrated to California and Hawaii in the early 80s. My paternal grandfather was a pastor at the Filipino United Church of Christ in Waipahu, as well as an ESL teacher at Waipahu Intermediate. My paternal grandmother was also a pastor and a full-time janitor for an apartment building on California Avenue in Wahila. My maternal grandfather worked on the plantations until he could petition my grandmother, my mother, and her siblings to come to Hawaii. My mother is a proud Farrington grad. My mother and father worked 3 jobs between the two of them to put me through a private elementary school. I attended a public high school until I was able to take the student loans out myself to attend university and law school. I walked through my childhood and teenage years burdened with shame, ashamed of my heritage, shame that I was a child of immigrants, shame that I heard 3 languages spoken at home, shame of my brown skin stemming from being scolded to stay out of the sun. Sometimes I was passing as Hawaiian in high school, sometimes Mexican, Puerto Rican, or Black and Japanese. Initially, I quietly said Filipino until I got tired of explaining where the Philippines was on a map to most kids who asked. Having spent all my summers in Wahiawa and Ewa Beach in the last 12 years in Hawaii, I feel more at home than I ever did in Los Angeles. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if I was taught something different growing up, if I had the opportunity to really learn about my culture and history as the future Filipino and non-Filipino students may have with the passing of this resolution. As a Filipino-American prosecutor for the island of Oahu, I can count as many Filipino colleagues I have in that office on one hand. There are 87 line deputy prosecuting attorneys for the entire population of Oahu, which numbered just above 1 million according to the 2020 census. Out of the 10 criminal circuit court judges, and in my first 1,000 days as a felony prosecutor, I have appeared in front of a single Filipino judge. There are now 2 Filipino circuit court judges. In my lifetime, I have seen 2 associate justices on the Hawaii Supreme Court. My career began with a fundamental
Raven,
education.
that's been 2 minutes. If you could summarize your
Okay.
testimony. I think this is all written, part of your written testimony too,
No
which we
worries.
have.
Thank you. This is just a snapshot of my story, my truth, the truth that took generations of Filipinos to form. Salamat and mahalo for taking the time to consider my testimony.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we have Agnes Balate in support. Okay, not present. That's all the testifiers we have for this measure. Anyone else here to testify in person or in Zoom on this either of these resolutions? Okay, so hearing none. Members, any questions? Yep, Rep. Ward.
Is Dr. Agbiani still there? Amy, are you still there?
Yes.
Amy, question. Are the Filipinos the second largest group in the DOE school system, public schools?
Actually, they were tied with the Native Hawaiians, but now the Filipino ethnic group this year is actually the largest.
Because on the floor today, we passed a resolution that said that the population of Hawaii, the second largest group were Filipinos.
That's for the state. This is for DOE. For
okay, the DOE. Okay.
Yeah.
What are the top three in the state then?
Caucasians, Filipinos, and then actually Japanese and Hawaiian.
Japanese and Hawaiians. Very good. Thank you for those metrics. Appreciate it. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Okay.
And
I'm
thank you,
sorry,
Amy, for all you do.
I missed someone. Charlene Boomalang in support. Are you there, Charlene?
Hello, I'm here.
Yep, go ahead.
Aloha, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and House members of the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Charlene Bumanglag, and I am testifying as an individual. I strongly support HCR 56, HR 50, requesting that the Department of Education implement a Filipino history, culture, and identity social studies course for high school students. I believe that this resolution, I believe in this resolution as I actually have taught at the university level in different states, including at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And one of the courses that I have taught is actually Filipinos in Hawaii, a credit-bearing course offered through the Department of Ethnic Studies. Among my enrolled students, over the span of about 3 different semesters, were undergraduate students from part and full Filipino backgrounds, as well as non-Filipino backgrounds. Some were from the continent, but many were actually schooled in the public school system here in Hawaii. This was the first time that majority, if not all, had been exposed to a course specifically about Filipinos. And in this course, my students were exposed to scholarship by and about Filipinos through readings, videos, discussions, assignments, and excursions. Through these learning opportunities, this is what I really want to share with you folks. I observed that students develop a deeper sense of connectedness to themselves, to their families, to their friends, to each other, and their diverse surrounding communities. They were able to see themselves and relate to course materials and develop a more holistic sense of self and community. I believe that offering a course about Filipino history, culture, and identity through the DOE can offer similar kind of social connectedness on multiple levels that I observed in my own undergraduate students. The significant impact here with HCR 56, HR 50 is that it would be offered at the high school level rather than having students wait for the opportunity at the university, where actually many do not even continue on to. It'll reach thousands and thousands of students, their families, educators, community members throughout the state of Hawaii for years to come. So I want to commend the students who have contributed to the initiation and their involvement in this resolution for the DOE, and I want to stand in strong support with them for HCR 56, HR 50. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you. And I'm told that the Tinalak Filipino Education Council is here now. Patricia, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Nakashima and Vice Chair Matayoshi and committee members. I'm Patricia Halagao, and I'm a professor at the UH College of Education, and I'm testifying on behalf of Tinalak Filipino Education Council. You may read our full testimony in strong support of the resolution, with research backing the importance of implementing curriculum that reflects the community we serve, and in this case, Filipinos, who make up the largest ethnic group in the DOE. I wanted to take the time just to lift up the Filipino Curriculum Project team, a diverse group of public and private school students who've experienced invisibility in their education and are doing something about it. And they're actually designing curriculum that they want for Filipinos, about Filipinos, and connecting it to non-Filipinos. I hope you'll read their testimonies in full. And then just on a personal note, I just wanted to share that I didn't learn anything about my identity until college. And I don't think other students should have to wait to learn about their rich history and culture in school. So I appreciate all the wide support that we've gotten around this resolution and all the multi-ethnic support. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, let's move on then to HCR 75 HR 68, urging the City and County of Honolulu Department of Environmental Services and partners to utilize the property located at 45-230 Kulauli Street in Kaneohe, Hawaii for aquaculture purposes that will not unreasonably interfere with the department's regular use of the property. We have one testifier who submitted written testimony with comments to the Department of Agriculture, but they are not here today. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, we'll move on to HCR 99, HR 94, urging the Honolulu City Council to review its ordinance on chickens, investigate the ordinance's role in contributing to the growing population of feral chickens, and take action to reduce the growing problem of feral chickens. Looks like we also do not have anyone here to testify, but we do have some testimony in support and in opposition that should be posted online. All right, well, with no one here to testify, anyone here to testify on this measure? Or either of these measures? Okay, if not, we'll move on to HCR 76, HR 69, convening a working group to determine any circumstances under which government entities should be reimbursed for search and rescue services on land for trail users and what constitutes proper public notice of a trail user's illegal presence on land for purposes of imposing penalties for violations of law. First up, we have Deal and R with comments.
Well, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, this is Bill Stormont, the Alahele Program Manager for the Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its written testimony and welcomes the opportunity to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I've got two Deal and R's. Is Dave Smith on too?
Don't believe so, sir.
Guess not. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions on this? Yep, Rep. Nakamura.
It's either for DLNR or the introducer. Who is convening this working group?
Bill Stormont, once again, the resolution does not specify who will be convening it.
Did you?
I haven't looked at this in a little while, but we can talk. Rep. Ward, did you have a question?
Yes. For those search and rescue that actually then get billed to the visitor or whoever the person is who's rescued, do they actually end up paying? I'm just wondering how effective has been the billing and the actually receipt of money. Do you have any idea of what the experience rating is?
As far as I know, the state has not sought to recover costs in this way. Typically, the response to these is handled by the county search and rescue and county emergency response agencies. My understanding is the County of Kauai has an ordinance in place that enables the opportunity for them to recover those costs. But as I'm told, they have never pursued that. But they do have a mechanism in place at the county level through an ordinance that allows them to pursue those costs if they choose to.
And the city and county of Honolulu does not have one?
To my knowledge, no, sir.
Okay, because we always been talking about, we're going, if you go up and screw up and you get lost or whatever, and it's your mistake, you were going to have to pay. So right now we have no record of what that actually entails then.
Not to my knowledge, sir, no. Again, that the county agencies are those that are responsible for the
Yep.
initial response. As our testimony states, from time to time, we will get involved in a supporting role, depending on where that search and rescue is taking place. If it's on lands that we manage and have knowledge of those lands, they'll seek our assistance and guidance as to how to get into these places and where these lost individuals may be. But once again, at the county level is where the initial response comes from, and that's the bulk of that effort is at the county level.
You guys don't have helicopters yet, right?
We don't have our own. We have chartered helicopters, no, but no, we do
Exactly.
not have our own
Okay.
helicopters, no,
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Vice Chair.
certainly.
Members, any other questions? Okay, if not, let's move on to HCR 104, HR 100, urging the Board of Land and Natural Resources to rename the Russian Fort Elizabeth State Historical Park in Waimea, Kauai as Paulaula, excuse me. We have one testifier today, DLNR in support.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kurt Cottrell, Administrator, Division of State Parks. And we stand on our written testimony in support of the resolution. Mahalo.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, if not, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to HCR 14, establishing a sister state relationship between the state of Hawaii, United States of America, and the autonomous region of Mandera, Portugal. First up, we have Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism in support.
Yes, aloha Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Dennis Ling for DBED. DBED stands in support of this measure. The Hawaii Sister State Committee has met and has unanimously agreed to recommend that this sister state be entered into. Thank you very much. I'll be able to answer any questions you may have.
Good, thank you. Next up, we have the Honorary Consulate of Portugal in Hawaii in support.
Aloha, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi. I'm Tyler Dos Santos Tam, the Honorary Consul of Portugal here in Hawaii. You know, this is a culmination of many years of efforts among the Portuguese community to establish this relationship. I know we already have a sister state relationship with the Azores, which is the other island group that belongs to Portugal, and it's hoped that through this relationship, we can rekindle our relationship also with the Azores. In addition, in the testimony packet, there are a number of letters from various government agencies in Mandera in support. They're very excited about this as well. And so I ask for your support on this. I note that the Senate in their concurrent resolution made a few changes in their last committee. So I don't know if the process here is to make those corresponding amendments at this committee or wait for that to cross over and vice versa, but I'll leave that to you to figure out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, hearing none, members, any questions?
Sure.
Yep, report.
Tyler, may I ask you a question? When we mention autonomous region, what does that autonomy entail? I'm not clear. Excuse my ignorance.
Yeah, no. So Portugal, unlike the United States, doesn't have provinces or regions except for those islands. And those islands, Madeira and the Azores, have the ability to set some of their own policies and laws. So during COVID, they were able to set their own arrival policies, kind of like Hawaii was able to do. They also pass their own budgets and things like that.
And it's 500 miles offshore.
Yep.
Well, I guess
so. It's right by the Canary Islands. So
they've got to be a bit autonomous, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to HCR 27, HD1, requesting the United States Census Bureau to redesignate the census designated place known as Captain Cook on the island of Hawaii as Ka'abaloa, and requesting Hawaii County to remove all references to Captain Cook as a place name on the island of Hawaii. We have a couple of individuals testifying today. Mitchell Lee in opposition.
Yes, good afternoon. Aloha and mahalo for the opportunity to submit testimony regarding HCR 27. I hear the chickens, so hold on, sorry, but that's part of the chickens. This is part of our community. And I've been a landowner here since 1990 and a taxpayer. Over the past 30 years, I've met wonderful people, both Native Hawaiians and people who have moved here. Since learning about HCR 27, I've asked several of my fellow Captain Cook residents and people who work here what they think of Representative Capella's measure to rename the city. to a person. Each of the several people I've spoken with think it's a bad idea. This includes both Native Hawaiians and people who have moved here. I actually emailed Representative Capella to alert her to this fact that people who live and work here aren't supporting it. Her response was, and I'm quoting, "This measure was sponsored at the request of numerous constituents and community organizations." So I sent the representative a follow-up email asking two questions. First, how many of these constituents actually live or work in Captain Cook? Second, what steps have you taken to determine whether their perspective is widely shared among the community and other constituents who actually live or work in Captain Cook? She did not respond. Representative Capella did not respond to my second email. So I sent her a third email. Again, she did not respond. I don't know why she is unwilling to answer these questions. Perhaps these constituents live outside of Captain Cook. Perhaps it's not actually all that broadly supported by her constituents. So I have always respected and enjoyed learning about Native Hawaiian culture, but I must say that the proposed name change has really very little to do with Hawaiian culture and a lot to do with cancel culture. And I'm not sure with all that's going on in the world, if this is the right thing to do. This will have a financial imposition on both the city and county of Hawaii, as well as small business people like myself. I don't want to disrespect the role of Hawaiian culture, but I think we also have to look at the fact that this is money that could go into the homeless issue or addressing issues with our kapuna or even creating more jobs. You know, I've lived here for 30 years and I don't want to get distracted, but we have so many talented children who get educated and then go off island for jobs. Why don't we put money into that instead of all the money you're going to have to spend on changing signs? This will hurt small
Mr.
business.
Lee, this is your 2 minutes have expired. If you could conclude your testimony, please.
Yes, if I just thank you so much. I'll make one more point. Of course, I'm not supporting this, but at the very least, if you could please have a non-binding referendum of people who actually live and work here. If you're going to do something as significant as change the name of our city, a city that we love, and please poll us. Please get data that says the people who live and work here either want it or don't want it. Thank you so much. This is the first time I've done this, and I very much appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Next up, we have Mihana Kihoi in support.
Aloha. Okay, sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yep, we can hear you.
Aloha, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and all members of the Judiciary Committee here today. Belina Mai, my name is Mehana Kihoi, and I'm a resident of Hawaii Island, born and raised in Honaunau. My ancestral ties to this island extend from Kohala to Pu'ukapuaimea and across to Ho'okena, Konahema. Today, I represent a household of 6 Native Hawaiians ranging between the ages of 2 years old to 73, all in strong support of HCR 27. I live in the neighboring town of Honaunau, and every single day for the last 38 years, I have been forced to acknowledge the historical trauma and genocide that Captain Cook inflicted upon my people over 200 years ago. Simply existing in the surrounding area and hearing this name uttered daily has changed my energetic relationship with this Aina. There is absolutely nothing honorable about irreparably damaging the continuity of the indigenous people of this land. The name change should have never happened in the first place. When I hear the name Ka'avaloa, I picture Albert Maderas, a master Hawaiian fisherman born and raised in the village of Ka'avaloa, who walked up and down that pali every day to go to school. When I hear the name Ka'avaloa, I picture my 2-year-old daughter, Ku'ena, never knowing this Ahupua'a by the name Captain Cook, but instead by its rightful and righteous name of Ka'avaloa. How beautiful will that be? A common argument that I've been seeing is the idea that this is canceling culture, a phrase that's been coined by settlers with no genealogical ties to this land. A phrase that is not only offensive, but grossly inaccurate. What we are doing here is correcting culture and restoring pono and integrity back to the land. The name that Albert Maderas' great-great-grandchildren will call the lands of his birth relies on the decision that you make today. I urge you to pass HCR 27. If you choose not to, you will be actively participating in the erasure of our language and therefore the Hawaiian culture. Statues of this individual are being taken down all over the world. The Native people are saying no to the remnants of colonization defiling their existence, and so are we. Never in my life have I heard the name Ka'awaloa.
Ms. Keohi, that's been 2 minutes. If you could start to conclude your testimony,
Yep,
please.
I'm almost done. I know our kupuna are happy. I know Albert Maderas is happy. Please help us to keep it this way. We have over 2,600 signatures that have signed for this redesignation, and I thank you for hearing this resolution today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Rep Ward.
Mr. Lee, are you still there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Mr. Lee, you just heard the former testifier that said that they have 2,600 signatures. Do you have a number of the polls that you've taken or the number of people you spoke to, or was it just a generic?
Before I respond to that, I think it's important to say that there was no genocide. Captain Cook is being put in with other people who happen to be white and happen to sail across the sea. The worst that Captain Cook did was unintentionally bringing in disease. I don't think that was his intention to come here. He was not a conquistador taking over the Aztecs. He was not someone involved in slave trade. I think we have to look at who Captain Cook was. And I will also say, in rebuttal to what she said, many countries initially meant to take a statue of Captain Cook down, but then when they investigated the true history, they changed course. So there's a lot of, I don't want to be disrespectful to the woman who just spoke, but a lot of what she said is simply not true. No, sir, I just found out about to answer your question now, Representative Ward, I just found out about this a few days ago. So I don't know what I haven't done any research, but I would ask, all we have to do is ask how many of those 2,600 people who signed the petition live or work here? You know, it may sound weird. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Lee, excuse me, I thought you said you had done a survey by asking people and you said not anyone that you spoke to was in favor.
Oh, I've spoken personally to about a dozen people. I've spoken personally to about a dozen, 15 people. Is that, okay. I'm so sorry, I didn't understand your question. I thought you meant did I do a big formal survey?
The sample size, basically.
My sample size is 12, 15 people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Thanks. Question for Mehana. And I just also kind of wanted to say hi, but can you tell us how many of the signatures that you guys collected, or are some number of them from residents of Captain Cook, Ka'awaloa area?
I can't. I don't have access to that information. I didn't draft the petition personally. I believe that perhaps Representative Capella might have more data on the numbers received, but I can just tell you that a very, very large amount are from residents of this area.
This area is not Captain Cook.
Of Captain Cook. Sorry, I don't personally acknowledge the name Captain Cook, so I will say several hundreds are residents from the area of Ka'awaloa.
Right, but you don't live here.
Okay.
Excuse me.
We're not getting back and forth.
Thank you, Mehana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay, if not, let's move on to HCR 8, HR 5, requesting the display of the prisoner of war and missing in action flag at the state capitol. We have one testifier, an individual in support, Dennis Ige.
Yes, Vice Chairman, I'm totally in support of this. For one particular reason stands out in my mind, the state of Hawaii veterans and military community is per capita the largest in the nation. So if that would be one case where our leadership may be required. Now, I also believe that having discussed this at the Oahu Veterans Council in previous months, that my sample is everybody that attends those meetings, and we're so thankful that the state has supported the Oahu Veterans Council in the building of the great place that it has turned out to be in support of this community. So I just say what I have in my mind is that we have this opportunity to show our leadership. I'm only asking that it be flown on the same flag staff with the stars and stripes, with the POWMIA flag flying directly below it. And if people want to add to that, that'd be fine. But we have to start somewhere, and I think at the state capitol is the best place to get started and publicly show our love and devotion for those military personnel who didn't come home, but they're not known exactly where they are or if they are actually prisoners of war at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions?
Sure.
Yep, report.
To the testifier, the notion that this is going to be year-round, is there any compromise of curtailing, abridging, or otherwise making it shorter rather than all year round, or is that a non-negotiable?
You can fly the flag 24/7 if you like, as long as you put a light on it so it can be seen in the dark. And there's no restriction. There are minimum days, used to be 6, but now I noticed that that is increased to 10. There's been 4 days added recently, and several states do already fly the POWMIA flag under the Stars and Stripes every day. However, it was interesting to look this up, and using the services of Google, they're not named. So I don't know why this is, but I'm sure I can find out the names of all the flags that we would, all the states that we would be joining in this effort to show our admiration for the heroes that we sent into battle and didn't come back. And we don't know where they are at the moment, or we do know or suspect they may be prisoners of war. Is that a good answer?
Thank you for your testimony. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, any further questions, members? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to HCR 103, HR 99, urging the Public Utilities Commission to increase fines, fees, and enforcement efforts regarding tour bus operators who violate state law. Members, we have one testifier, Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, writing in with comments, but they are not here today. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to HCR 122, HD1, HR 122, HD1, urging the State Commission on the Status of Women to work with the Domestic Violence Action Center, the Filipino Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii, and other chambers of commerce in Hawaii, as appropriate, to develop and implement an outreach program aimed at informing domestic violence victims of available resources for assistance. First up, we have the Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women in support.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, Committee members, Lainey Trin for Executive Director, Kara Jabola Corliss, Commission on the Status of Women. The Commission stands on our testimony in support of HCR 122 HD1 with amendments. Mahalo, Vice Chair Matayoshi and members.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights in support.
Good afternoon, Representative Nakashima and Representative Matayoshi. This is Pat McManaman, the Hawaii Friends for Civil Rights, who stand in strong support of this measure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights in support.
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee, Liza Rangel with the Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights. We stand in strong support of this resolution. You have our written testimony. Mahalo.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to HCR 87, HR 78, urging the city and county of Honolulu to establish a new police district in Leeward, Oahu, to provide adequate police services and law enforcement response for growing Leeward, Oahu communities. We have a number of individuals who submitted written testimony in support, but including Shoko, but no one here to testify in person or over Zoom. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to HCR 166, HR 166, requesting the governor to establish a Hawaii Commission on the United States semi-quincentennial by executive order. Again, I do not believe we have anyone here to testify in person, but we do have a number of testimonies written in support of this measure. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the bill on the agenda, SB 3078 SD1 HD1, relating to advanced warning for excavation. We have one testifier here in support, the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Chair, members of the committee, we stand on our written testimony in support and available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this measure?
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. I'm Tim Lyons with the Hawaii Pest Control Association, and we support the bill. It's largely housekeeping, but it does clarify that someone who digs a little shallow trench is not an excavator, and that's why it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, if not, members, any questions? Okay, let's recess for decision making. Recess. Reconvening the Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. It is still April 5th in conference room 325. So first up, we've got HCR 7, HR 3, urging the Hilo High School School Community Council to recommend that Hilo High School, should be the, but actually, you know, we're gonna amend that title to add a the, so it reads properly. Urging the Hilo High School School Community Association to recommend that the Hilo High School gym be named after Albert and Lawrence Malingus. Vice Chair is recommending that it pass with just that one amendment to add the to the title to make it consistent. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair, as amended.
Okay. HCR 7, HR 3, urging the Hilo High School Community Council to recommend the Hilo High Gym be named after Albert and Lawrence Malingus. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ichiyama. Aye. Representative Kobayashi. Excused. Representative Lupresti.
Aye.
Representative Lowen.
Aye.
Representative McKelvey.
Aye.
Representative Nakamura.
Aye.
Representative Takumi.
Aye.
Representative Tokioka.
Aye.
Representative Ward.
Aye.
Okay, Chair, motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Next up, we have HCR 50 HD1, HR 45 HD1, urging the Department of Education to convene a working group to remedy statewide school bus transportation inequities for school children from low to moderate income families. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair, for the vote.
Okay. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, knowing the excuse absent of Representative Kobayashi or any noes, any reservations, measures adopted.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have HCR 56 HD1, HR 50 HD1, requesting the Department of Education to implement a Filipino history, culture, and identity social studies course for high school students. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair with the vote.
Okay, Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Knowing the excuse absent of Representative Kobayashi, any noes, any reservations, motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Next up, we have HCR 75, HR 68, urging the City and County of Honolulu Department of Environmental Services and partners to utilize the property located at 45-230 Kulauli Street, Kaneohe, Hawaii, for aquaculture purposes that will not unreasonably interfere with the department's regular use of the property. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair with the vote.
HCR 75, HR 68. Chair's recommendation is to pass unamended. Knowing the excuse absent of Representative Kobayashi, any noes, any reservations, measures adopted.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have HCR 99, HR 94, urging the City and County of, urging the Honolulu City Council to review its ordinance on chickens, investigate the ordinance's role in contributing to the growing population of feral chickens, and take action to reduce the growing problem of feral chickens. The Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Any members, any questions or comments? Okay, if not, Chair with the vote.
Okay, HCR 99, HR 94, recommendations to pass unamended. Knowing the excuse absent of Representative Kobayashi, any noes?
No here.
No. McKelvey. Any other noes? Tokioka. Any other noes? Reservations? Okay, measures adopted.
Good. Thank you, members. Next up, we've got HCR 76, HR 69, convening a working group to determine any circumstances under which government entities should be reimbursed for search and rescue services on land for trail users and what constitutes proper public notice of a trail user's illegal presence on land for purposes of imposing penalties for violations of law. Members, Vice Chair's recommendation is to amend this to have DLNR convene the working group, but otherwise unamended. Any questions or comments? Okay, Chair, as amended.
HCR 76, HR 69, recommendations passed with amendments. Knowing the excused absence of Representative Kobayashi, any noes? Any reservations? Seeing none, the motion is adopted.
Good, thank you, members. Next up, we have HCR 104, HR 100, urging the Board of Land and Natural Resources to rename the Russian Fort Elizabeth State Historical Park in Waimea, Kauai as Pa'ulaula. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair, unamended.
HCR 104, HR 100, recommendations pass unamended. Any noes? Any reservations? Motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have HCR 14, establishing a sister state relationship between the state of Hawaii, United States of America, and the autonomous region of Mandera, Portugal. We have a number of amendments to this to make it consistent with the Senate version. First, we are going to be clarifying background information regarding the archipelago of Mandera. On page 2, line 38, we are changing President of the Autonomous Region of Mandera to President of the Regional Government of Mandera, and also making other non-substantive technical amendments for the purposes of clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any questions or comments? See none, Chair, as amended. It's 14. HCR 14, please. Okay, I'm sorry.
KHCR 14 passed with amendments. Yep. KHCR 14 passing with amendments. Knowing the excused absence of Representative Kobayashi, any noes? Any reservations? Motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have HCR 27, HD1, requesting the United States Census Bureau to redesignate the census designated place known as Captain Cook on the island of Hawaii as Ka'awaloa, and requesting Hawaii County to remove all references to Captain Cook as a place name on the island of Hawaii. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Members, any questions or comments? Rep. Ward.
Chair, brief comment. I was very impressed with the testimony on both sides. I'm increasingly seeing what is on the ground level, but like in the McKinley High School proposal to change the name, once they talked to those on the ground, i.e. the alumni, they said, hey, back off. And I'd like to see the 2,600 signatures, if they were from the people of Captain Cook, or what would be a plebiscite to get a better reading, and maybe that's from Representative Capella. But right now, I'm still in the negative category. Thank you.
Members, any other questions or comments? Rep. Lopresti.
Thank you, Chair. I would just ask that the committee report maybe reflect that we need some sort of better process for renaming things, whether it's a referendum, but I really think these kind of decisions should be community-based. And clearly there's members of that community, at least around that community, who support it. And there's obviously from the testimony people there who don't. And I don't think we should just rely on the word of one representative, whether they're a friend or not, that we should change it. I mean, I represent Ewa Beach and Campbell High School. If I introduce a reso that says, let's change it to Pu'uloa, I don't think everybody should just do it because I introduced it. I mean, we might change it to Tagiovelaville because he's from there, or Moriota Town, but it shouldn't just be because a senator or representative introduces these things. They must be community driven, community based, and some sort of referendum for us to make these decisions. So I'm just reservations based on that process. Certainly if the community wants to change it, I totally support it, but it's clearly not clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair, as unamended.
Okay, HCR 27 passed unamended, noting the excused absence of Representative Kobayashi, the reservation of Representative Lepresti, and the no vote from Representative Ward. Any other reservations or Representative Tokioka reservation? Any other reservations? Any no's? Any other no's? Okay, motion is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HCR 8. HCR 8, I'm sorry, HCR 8 and HR 5 requesting the display of the prisoner of war and missing in action flag at the state capitol. Vice Chair's recommendation is to amend the resolution to clarify that instead of from year round, to change that to having the flag displayed on Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Members, any questions or comments?
Chair, comment. I did further research on the, actually, there's only one fixed day, and that is Veterans Day, November 11. But the last day of Monday is Memorial Day, and so it can fluctuate. So actually, the POW Recognition Day is the third Friday of September, which means like Memorial Day is going to vary every year. Therefore, if we have a National Recognition Day for POWs, if we pass a POW Recognition Day and we don't include the national, we'd look a little bit odd. And I know we wanted consistency, like every day, like November 11 is going to be Veterans Day and a specific day for Memorial Day. Well, Memorial Day is the last Monday, and the third Friday of the month is POW Day. So I would kindly request that you include the National POW Recognition Day as one of the, or the third day that the flag would be thrown. Now we're going from 365 days to 3, so I think we've done quite a reduction.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. We'll add that third day as well.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair, with amendments.
HCR 8, HR 5, passed with amendments. During excuse absence of Representative Kobayashi. Any reservations? Any no's? Motions are carried.
Next up, we've got HCR 103, HR 99, urging the Public Utilities Commission to increase fines, fees, and enforcement efforts regarding tour bus operators who violate state law. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair, as is.
Okay, HR 103, HR 99, recommendations to pass unamended, knowing the excuse absence of Representative Kobayashi. Any no? Any reservation? Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next up, we've got HCR 122, HD1, HR 122, HD1, urging the State Commission on the Status of Women to work with the Domestic Violence Action Center, the Filipino Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii, and other chambers of commerce in Hawaii as appropriate to develop and implement an outreach program aimed at informing domestic violence victims of available resources for assistance. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this as is. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair, as is.
It's CR 122, HD1, HR 122. Recommendations to pass unamended, knowing the excuse absence of Representative Kobayashi. Any reservations? Any no's? Motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HCR 87, HR 78, urging the city and county of Honolulu to establish a new police district in Leeward, Oahu to provide adequate police services and law enforcement response for growing Leeward, Oahu communities. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair, as is.
HCR 87, HR 78. Motion is to pass unamended, knowing the excuse absence of Representative Kobayashi. Any reservations? Any no's? Motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Last resolution on the agenda, HCR 166, HR 166, requesting the governor to establish a Hawaii Commission on the United States semi-quincentennial by executive order. Vice Chair's recommendation is to amend this to, for the relevant section to read the following: be it further resolved that a certified copy of this concurrent resolution be transmitted to the governor of the state of Hawaii, the chairman of the U.S. Semi-Quincentennial Commission, and the executive director of the U.S. Semi-Quincentennial Commission. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Chair as amended.
HCR 166, HR 166, recommendations to pass with amendments. No excuse absent of Representative Kobayashi. Any reservations? Any no's? Motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to the bill on the agenda, SB 3078 SD1 HD1 relating to advanced warning for excavation. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this as is. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Chair as is.
Okay. SB 3078 SD1 HD1, recommendations to pass unamended. Knowing the excuse absent, Representative Kobayashi. Any reservations? Any no's? Motion is carried.
Okay, thank you, members. We are adjourned.